Hello, welcome to the Knock On KCLR and Scoreline.ie's rugby podcast. We're here every week. This week we're joined by former Leinster captain and general legend Chris Pim, and also general legend and Tullow rugby man Johnny Tobin. If I don't attribute the legend status to each and every one of them, we have problems. How are you, lads?
All good, yeah. All good, yeah. We're going to have to change that introduction a little bit. It's getting a bit tired.
It is, absolutely. I also forgot to wear my uniform today. So two fellas are in their Leinster gear. I am wearing navy, though, if it's any consolation. Actually, before we get cracking, what do you think of the new Munster jersey? Have you seen it?
Haven't seen it. Why would I be looking at the Munster jersey?
Exactly. I was just testing this out.
No comment.
It's not great.
I think I saw a pink thing there, did I?
It's about 20 different shades of red and a bit of white and stripes and stuff. And
will it improve the playing?
Hopefully, go faster stripes and all that stuff. Sure, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, we've plenty to chat about this week. We're going to talk about the South African win over the Lions last week. Of course, we're going to preview the third and final test, which is coming up this week. And we'll talk about the sideshows as well, with Rassie Erasmus getting misconduct hearing from World Rugby, which we expected was going to happen anyway. But we'll talk about all that as well. But first, South Africa 27, Lions 9. We were a bit more confident, Chris, coming into this game, that the Lions would have been able to back up what they did the week before, maybe, and see the series win on Saturday. But couldn't have been more wrong.
Couldn't have been more wrong. Started hurt a half decent. We're in the game, but literally as the game progressed, Lions just got steadily worse. Kind of drifted out of the game, and the whole stop-start nature of the game clearly suited South Africa a lot better than it did the Lions. So it was pretty much from start to finish very disappointing. But it's a long way back from that one, to be quite honest. And I think even the changes they've made this week, I might have made one or two different changes myself in addition. So I'm not sure he's freshened enough to turn things around. But look, we live in hope, and it's 0-0 start of the game, same as it is for everyone. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, certainly it was a disappointing affair, that's for sure.
Johnny, what happened, do you think?
I don't know. It looked a bit like a GA match, to be honest with you. There's not a lot of kicking going on. Very little carrying. But I was just looking at some stats there during the week. If you're looking at the carry stats, like we had 49 carries and 77 meters gained. So how are you going to win a game with them kind of stats? Your loose head prop has 15 meters made in 8 carries. He's the highest as regards to the ratio, and then your fullback is the closest to him. Like, we lost the physical aspect completely, and then definitely again it's back to the aerial and physical. If you lose both of them against South Africa, they're just going to rip you to shreds like they did last Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. The scrum disintegrated, Chris.
Yeah, scrum as well was poor based on last week. We thought we were probably in a better place than we were in reality, but scrum never really got going at all. And again, steadily disimproved during the game, but clearly made a decision that we could beat the South Africans at their own game by literally trying to take them on up front and then kicking the leather off the ball. And at no stage did it look like either of those two was going to work. So it's big time back to the drawing board, and if he wants to win the game this week, well, he's either going to go again with the same again and hope that Liam Williams can do a better job in the backfield, or else they're going to have to try and throw the ball around and create some space by carrying. But yeah, look, that's a shocking stat of 77 yards gained through the course of a game. I mean, there'd be lads get that on their own some days. So, it's just shocking stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how they approach it, to be honest. The fact that they've gone back to Ali Price at 9, I think maybe might suggest that we're going to try and put a bit of width on the board. They've put Aki and Henshaw together, which I said we would have done last week. And because clearly Farrell, Elliot Daly, neither of them have really fired at all. So I think it's probably a good call to bring in Aki, but I think it's a massive ask of him. A guy who's played very little rugby to step up and lead the line essentially for what hopefully will be a bit more ball carrying on Saturday.
Johnny, is there anything you can take from that second test that the Lions can bring into the third? Anywhere that there was any bit of an advantage at all, do you think?
No. Looking at their maul, and they were defending on the 42nd or 43rd minute, and they were defending a full South African maul with 4 players. So they're looking like they're trying to fight fire with fire, and that doesn't really work. So I don't know. I think it's back to the drawing board. I do agree with Chris. I think Liam Williams might offer some more to it. I think it's a big ask of Bundy Aki coming in there. But I don't know. I would have liked to see a lot more of a shake-up. I think Tom Curry is very lucky to hold his spot still in the team. I think he's been a liability the last 2 tests. I think Ian Henderson is very unlucky not getting involved in a squad. But I don't know, is he back in his reliables? I don't know what he's doing, because for me that test team for this Saturday is very, very similar to the test team last Saturday. The only major difference is Ali Price is a little bit quicker under the ball than Murray. He plays a little bit more than the box kick game.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly they're going to try and make a bit of yardage up the 12 channel by playing Aki. That's the only reason you play him. So, South Africans are just going to fill that channel, and they will do everything in their power to take on Aki in that first 10 or 15 minutes just to put a marker down. If that doesn't work, I think it's like, oh, Jesus, where do we go now? You're kind of back to the kicking game, which we also know doesn't work. So I'm hoping Gregor Townsend is finally going to make his mark on the tour, because he needs to produce something that, I think for the game in general, we can't. It's bad for the game that if this kick chase game is going to be what wins test matches, because nobody wants to watch that. I mean, it was absolutely turgid, over 2 hours of turgid muck, to be quite honest. And much and all is there's the passion and the desire from everybody to be, cheering on the Lions and cheering on South Africans, whatever side you're on. There's a limit of to how much just pure physical kick and chase you can watch. So, I think there's an onus. Well, there may be a larger onus on World Rugby to change the game that limits the number of kicks or something you can make in a play. But it's nonsense the way it is gone at the moment, that clearly everyone's done their sums and gone, okay, we've done the maths. The best way you can win a game of rugby nowadays is kick the ball up in the air. That's wrong. That's bad. And that's not good for the game. So yeah. I think there's a bigger piece outside of next week that needs to be sorted there to try and fix that aspect of the game. And I'd like to think that the Lions will be a bit more adventurous this weekend and try and run into a bit of space, which I'm not saying is easy against South Africans, but yeah.
Does 6 changes, Johnny, indicate a bit of panic? The way the optics look from the outside going into the third test.
I wouldn't say panic. I'd say more realization that the first 2 squads weren't working. Like if Josh Adams in, who was top try scorer in every competition he's in, and he's getting in the third test, maybe the second test might have been a better test for him to come in, because now there's immense pressure on him to perform, being 1-1 as it would have been to 1-0 in the second test. I would like to see a lot more changes, to be honest with you, but I wouldn't say panic. I'd just say a realization that it's sinking in now that the squad he went with for the first 2 isn't really working. Not surprised to see Owen Farrell out of the squad. Thought he was very lucky to be in it. Excited to see Finn Russell in it. Maybe he might offer something in the end, last 15-20 minutes. But no, I wouldn't say panic. I'd just say it's sunk in now that he needs to change things up.
Yeah, Conor Murray's gone altogether from the matchday squad. Harsh or fair?
Murray's in, isn't he, on the bench?
He's on the bench, I think, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's on the bench. Murray's on the bench.
Yeah.
My bad.
I actually thought it was strange. I thought Gareth Davis might get in. Maybe Ali Price and Gareth Davis are a little bit like for like, and they might want to put someone on with a cooler head for the last 15 minutes, as they did in the first test. I was just looking at something there during the week. Ali Price or Finn Russell and Marcus Smith. Finn Russell has 3 appearances and 8 points. Marcus Smith has 1 appearance and 14 points. So would he have been the better shot to go on the bench for the last 15 minutes with a bit more maverick and a bit more flair to him than what Finn Russell might have? And he's fully fit to the best we know, as Finn Russell has been rested halfway through the tour. So, look, hard to know.
Interesting one, yeah. I mean, I think looking at the changes and stuff, I think Van der Merwe is unbelievably lucky to survive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he brought anything to the party in either test. And he's still there. I don't know what he needs to do to get dropped. I mean, that was bizarre.
Not Welsh. Well, South African Welsh.
Yeah, well, whatever you want to call him. But it's, that was a strange one. I thought they might shuffle the back row a bit. As said earlier there, Johnny, that Curry is certainly lucky to hang on. I thought, to be honest, Courtney Laws offered very little as well. Never got on the ball. It seemed to drift out of the game very, very early on. I actually would have brought in Byrne a lot earlier. I mean, he's a bit unlucky, having got 7 minutes and 8 minutes in the 2 games. You know, it's very hard to put a stamp on a game, chasing a game with 7 minutes on the park. So I think he'd have to consider himself very unlucky to be chucked out of the 23. I nearly would have given him a start, to be honest.
Yeah.
Particularly if we were going to throw the ball and try and put a bit of width on the game. I think Ty would consider himself very unlucky to miss out there. And I think both Curry and Laws are lucky to survive. Now, look, Laws probably there on the basis of his first test, which is probably fair enough, but still in all, it's a little bit of a surprise with there's not more changes there. I think Conan did well again, but again didn't really stamp his authority on the game. But as you say, if we've 49 meters or 49 carries and 77 meters of gain line, that's a lot of hard work there, and not too many guys making yardage. But he was probably one of the few who did make a couple of half decent carries. But
Conan was what was Conan? Where is he? Jack Conan. He made 4 meters out of 7 carries.
Wow. Okay.
So Tom Curry made 1 meter out of 4 carries. So is it hard, Chris, for them for the back rowers, especially in the back 5, I suppose, to perform while they're going forward in everything? They're going forward, or they're going backwards rather in the scrums. Exactly, they're going backwards in the maul. It's very hard to get a stamp on a game when they're all the time going backwards, I think. No question.
Yeah, very, very difficult. You're taking the ball, and the other thing, if you're taking the ball behind the gain line, you're really struggling. Whereas I thought in the first test, and particularly in that first half of the South Africa A game, there was a lot of ball on the gain line. And I think as well, I think we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago as well, Bigger takes the ball very deep compared to how we would, compared to how Johnny would have, takes the ball obviously on the gain line, Johnny Sexton. I think that's obviously creating a problem as well, because we're just not getting even to the gain line after first, second, even third phase ball. So it does make it very, very difficult to try and get into the game and get in the front foot if you're everything you're doing is behind the gain line. So I think, and that's possibly one of the reasons why they're having to kick so much, because they can't get to the gain line given the physicality of the South Africans. But look, I mean, I think they absolutely need to find a way this weekend.
What do you think of the changes in the front row? Ken Owens coming in and Wyn Jones back and Mako back on the bench?
Yeah, it's to be expected. I don't think Luke Cowan-Dickey done much wrong last week, but again, is it Warren Gatland going back to type and reverting to who he knows? They're two, in fairness to Wyn Jones and Ken Owens, they're two very well tested players, and they're good front row players, so I can't see an issue with it as regards front row selection. My biggest fear on the changes would be Sam Simmons on the bench. I really think he's feeling the heat of Test rugby. I think I got myself included, I raved about him when he was picked, that he was so good for Exeter and whatever, but I think he has really felt the heat of Test rugby, and he is our only back row sub against a very physical box team for the weekend at the third test. Is he going to really feel the heat when he comes on in a must-win test match? So front row for me is I'd be happy with it. I think actually another person who's very lucky is Kyle Sinclair. to be in that squad with an allegation of biting, even if he was cleared. I still think might have looked elsewhere for a different option. You know, temperament has to play a massive part in a third test, like so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see the front row whether Wyn Jones. I don't really know a whole lot about him. I haven't really noticed him at test level even. So he's a little bit tried and tested. He obviously got picked for the first test and has to drop out through injury. So, you know, it's his opportunity to prove that he should have been there the whole time. So he's back from injury now. Let's see how he goes. I think obviously Warren likes him because he clearly had him in his mind up until the first test. So yeah, look, it's definitely an interesting one. So I think front row is probably you couldn't have too many complaints. I thought Tig was as good as he could have been again under difficult circumstances. So, and you know, if Sinclair is his nearest competitor, well then he doesn't have a whole lot of opposition there. So I think front row look be happy enough. But second row then obviously picked itself. I thought, you know, Wyn Jones probably struggled a bit in the second half. But then, you know, you bring in Byrne into your row. So they've kind of said, look, they've nailed the colours to their mast that they're not going to play. Not one of the second rows isn't coming off. So, and Sam Simmons, well, obviously this week they've got Adam Baird in the row, so they have some bit of cover there. But it's slightly strange. Sorry, lads. Slightly strange that they have gone with Simmons. Yeah, very unproven, and I wouldn't have thought he's shown anything on this tour to suggest that he should have been picked.
Is there enough impact on that bench if we get caught in a situation like we did at the weekend, you know, where there was, well, not parity, but we were close enough in terms of the scoreboard at half time, and then South Africa put the boot down in the second half. Is it a good enough bench to stem the flow of the South Africans if they get into a flow?
I wouldn't think so, personally. If you were with a interprovincial team, a Leinster or Munster or something like that, you'd say that's an excellent bench. If you're at test level, I just don't think it brings the physicality to it. There's a couple of weak links. I think Elliot Daly, another one, is very lucky. I think he's been blown out of the park every time he's played against South Africa. Front row, first Luke Cowan-Dickey and Mako Vinopola, definitely. I think Kyle Sinclair is a loose cannon, and in the last 20 I think he could give you away more harm than he does good. Adam Beard, I know he's been good for Wales, but I know very little about him other than that. Sam Simmons, like I said, is not tested. I suppose Murray is probably the steadiest out of backs, and then Finn Russell again. He's good, but he's liable to do anything. He'll chance something for you, and there's little risk and no reward if you don't try something. So it's hard to know.
It seems even crazier when you look at the bench that Faletau was dropped for Sam Simmons, considering the experience he has at test level and big games like this. You know, if that's what the plan was with the bench, to try and have something there, you know, in case they get a bit under pressure, but it doesn't fill you with an awful lot of confidence.
Yeah, no, it's a strange one. I'm not quite sure where we're coming from there, and I would agree that the bench, bar Finn Russell, who is liable to do anything, he'll certainly make an impact, but you're just not quite sure which impact it will be. But he'll certainly influence the game when he comes on, that's for sure, because he will try something. So, and you know, given the nature of the day, given the nature of the game, really, would you have been better having him there to start with, and then somebody to close out the game, as opposed to, because we're clearly not very good at chasing the game, and the South Africans clearly don't like chasing a game either. If the South Africans get in front, it's going to be very, very difficult to reel them in. So I just not quite sure. I think it probably would have gone the other way around. I'd have chucked Russell in there and then tried to steady ship on the way home, because I don't think there's any point in us hoping that we're going to reel them back in if they're 13 or 14 points ahead with 20 minutes to go. South Africans have just closed the game. So, I mean, you know, it is a slightly strange one, but yeah, look, I'm a work on the basis that they're inside the camp. They know a lot more than we do. So let's hope they they know a lot more than we do. But I think probably the one thing in our favour, or two things in our favour, is that Dwayne Vermeulen's injured and hasn't been able to, didn't make the cut at 8, and Faf de Klerk is out. Both of those are big calls at 8, 9, that kind of access. I would have been really worried if Vermeulen was back in there. So that definitely helps our cause. And I think the 9 that's been covering for de Klerk there is watery enough. So it'd be interesting to see if we could make a bit of progress down that channel.
Yeah.
And it may be why they've gone with Ali Price as well, that, he's a little bit more, a little sharper around the base and that kind of stuff. So yeah, look, who knows, but that's definitely a chink of light for the Lions.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's I was moving on to there. It gives us something to be optimistic about when missing those two fellas, and like you said, Dwayne Vermeulen as well. Not fit enough this weekend. Obviously, still carrying a knock or something there as well. The Enabers went to a 5-3 split as well on the bench, and he's brought back in Morney Stain.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, well, that's the very same thing. He's going to be happy. 20 minutes to go. He knows what he's going to be doing. He's just going to close the game down. And
no better man.
No better man, exactly, yeah. Whereas the guy was covering, what's his name? The guy was at 10. He a little bit flaky, or you just wouldn't have the solidity that Stein would have. So, yeah, that absolutely, you can see where he's coming from there. So,
how big of a loss are those two players? Like, we know how good Faf is and Steph Dutoit. Is it a huge thing, or is it a thing that the Springboks, can easily cope with the loss of players like that? It's not like you're hanging your hat on, I don't know, the Johnny Sextons of the world and that for Ireland.
I think Faf de Klerk is the equivalent of Johnny Sexton for Ireland, to be honest with you. Faf de Klerk is so steady and nothing rattles him. Absolutely nothing bothers that man. Like, you see him, he was being viewed on the television screen last week for a headshot on Conor Murray, and he was laughing with Quagga Smith as it was going on. Nothing bothers that man. But I think it's the time for our back five to go at ruck time with this new 9 in. I think, like Chris said, he's untested, rattled his cage early and put him under a lot of pressure on clean, good ball, give them no clean ball. I think that'll slow down their good threats on the outside. But I really do think Faf de Klerk is a massive loss for the Springboks. He's the link, and he's a solid link. He's probably one of the best 9s. Like I said, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, himself and Antoine Dupont are the 2 best 9s, in my opinion, in the world at the moment. So he'd be a massive loss. I think they can survive without a lot of others. But Murray and Stain coming in, close out the game, 20 minutes left. If I was the Lions I was 2 or 3 points up, I wouldn't be backing myself with that man coming in.
Should we fly Johnny Sexton out? Do we have time?
Ship was sailed, I'm afraid. Yeah. But look, I mean, it's actually a really good point, and I think possibly one of the reasons they didn't bring him was that he was possibly too big a character for the group. They'd thrown him in there late. I wonder, would he just have rattled particularly having won the first test? Would it have been too much to ask him to step in there? But I actually 100% think he would have added a huge amount to the party. And you look at the amount of guys, even I was just listening to a couple of podcasts and reading a bit of media and stuff during the week that that there's 8-9 players sitting at home that can feel really hard done by that they didn't get the trip, and that the squad that was picked in the first place wasn't the best one that was available. So, but look, that's always going to be the case, and we can't do much about it now. But look, I think it would have obviously been. You'd love to see Johnny in that cauldron there with tests at 1-1. There'd be no better man step up to the plate. So, but yeah, I agree with Johnny. I think Faf de Klerk is a big loss, and Peter Steph Dutoit as well at 7. He's a big man. He's a huge presence in that side. He's gone now as well with a shoulder injury. So, that certainly would just maybe give us a little chink of light. They're 2 big men with 2, big parts of the squad. So look, fingers crossed it does give us a little bit of a chance, but you can't believe the guys that are coming in won't be doing the best to plug that hole.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the Cape Town pitch, the pitch was fairly torn up last week. It wasn't in great nick. Let's hope they got a little tractor, Johnny, and they ran a roller over it a couple of times this week. It's getting fairly torn up there, which it does affect everything that happens as well in a match. Especially, it's only a small detail, I suppose. But
yeah.
It's a part of the whole thing.
Gained anyway, I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
It wasn't from red jerseys. But it's a major factor in the game. Obviously, if the sod is turned up underneath you, so you have no grip for doing anything. You're scrumming maul and it's just constant slip. But we're not going to blame that for the loss. So it's a lot more contributing factors to the loss than the ground being ripped up. But look, I couldn't see it being an issue unless there was heavy downpour rain and it was ripping up. Then it'd be a free for all right. But I'm sure they have a little roller or something down there in Cape Town they can go over and soften it
down. Chris, we were talking about players there at home that should felt hard done by that they didn't get out. But what about the players out there that haven't got a game or touched the ball in anger? Brian O'Driscoll was talking about it during the week. He says it's a bit ridiculous and it should never happen on a Lions tour. Like Ian Henderson hasn't played. A good few players haven't even, all they've done is train. It's a long time to be out there away from families and everything as well, and the honour of being called up without getting the touch of ball. And now everyone understands that, you get called up and you do whatever is necessary for the team or whatever else, but not getting any game time is a bit of a pain.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the whole thing with bringing Kelleher out there is bizarre, and the fact that he hasn't been involved in any game, I think that's criminal. I have no idea what was going on there. I did actually half expect him to appear on the bench this weekend because I just seemed bizarre that they brought him out there when there was no injury if they weren't going to play him. And as you say, obviously one of the things about Lions Tour is there's obviously the midweek games, and they didn't have midweek games once the test starts. Now I know you don't have it for the week of the last match anyway. But yeah, it does mean there's a lot of lads sitting on their backside, twiddling their thumbs, and particularly given COVID and they can't go out and they can't socialise and they can't meet their friends, and it's just, I would have thought it makes it a seriously turgid and long few days or a couple of weeks that you're without rugby and having to manage your time and manage being sociable and trying to stay pleasant for that length of time. I can imagine is extremely difficult. So yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. I think it's very difficult.
Yeah, but like we know, Johnny, this year that the calendar was all up in the air with COVID and all that stuff as well. But usually they'd get a run out on the midweek games. Whatever about not being called up for the tests, that's fine. But to just go and train and then have to turn around and head back to your province then after spending 2 months in South Africa with nothing to show for it, more or less.
Yeah, it's strange, I suppose, with the years in it. But the other side of the coin is not being funny. The lads knew what they're getting into going out. They knew there was going to be no midweek games, etc. But I do think Ian Henderson is a tested international player. He would be, for me, the biggest doubt or the biggest regret if I was Warren Gatland, rather, to not have him in some sort of squad once or twice at least. I just think for someone like Ian Henderson, it's crazy to bring out such a, I'd say, world-class second row, world-class player, to bring him out and not use him, and then put in a untested Adam Beard. I think what has he got? He's 21 years of age. I think he's 13 or 14 caps for Wales. Look, it's strange, but it is the year we're in, and there is no midweek game. So I just think Ian Henderson and Roland Kelleher. Roland Kelleher was the biggest waste of time as regards the Lions call-up. And it's tainted for him because he was called out and just used to train and sent home. They could have called anyone out at that stage. It made absolutely no sense. But look, it is what it is.
Absolutely. Lads, we'll wrap it up soon. We're finished by talking about Rassie. The Rassie show has been happening the last couple of weeks. I hope he's okay, and everything. He seems to be going a bit crazy. Well, that's how it's been viewed from the outside anyway. But as we suspected, Chris and Johnny, World Rugby was going to catch up with him and have a little word, and that's what's going to happen. So he's been called up to a misconduct hearing about all the bits and pieces. You'd have to ask yourself, what was the point of the whole thing? What was he doing? Why? It's just crazy.
Yeah, just bizarre stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think he's lost the plot. I think I fully accept it's an issue, and I kind of heard a bit of chat around the whole piece that the coaches get really, really frustrated that when they don't get their feedback from referees until the Tuesday after a game. And they're busy trying to set up training sessions for obviously the week to come. And they want to know, why couldn't we get this feedback on a Sunday, the day after a game, so that on a Monday, Tuesday, they can iron out all the issues that came up as part of the report. So I think that's one of the big issues that they're looking, and obviously Joe Schmidt is involved in this process, that they're looking to change that so that coaches can get their feedback back earlier from the players. Now, that's clearly only a tiny piece of the jigsaw that Rassie went on his crusade. But yeah, look, when I heard it first, I was like, you're having a laugh. I mean, this is just ridiculous. You know, go stand in the corner and calm down a bit. I mean, honestly, nonsense. But kind of the more I heard of it, the more of the content I saw, you kind of go, oh, well, you know, maybe he has a point there, maybe he has a point. So I think it was, it certainly, Rassie does things his own way, and he's proven that with his water boy stuff and, you know, everything he's done through the process. So he's always been a little bit off center, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, look, I'd be really interested to see what World Rugby think, and they certainly, I would imagine, will be not overly happy that he's been quite as dictatorial as he has. But yeah, look, I think a lot of it as well is showmanship. It took the pressure off the players after the first test. So yeah, look, he's kind of playing the game a bit there as well.
Now, what do you reckon, Johnny?
Part of me thinks the coach in me thinks it's reckless and childish to challenge World Rugby in that way. But then the other side of the coin is he correct? I think so. Has he a lot of facts? I think so. It's mad. The more I watched it, the more I got into it. Like Chris said, the more I think, geez, maybe he has a real point here. But if he had done it privately, would there be nothing done about it? Probably not. So I think there could have been other ways of going about it, but I don't think it would have got as much of a reaction as it did. It obviously worked for them. In the second test, there was massive calls overlooked. My main one being there was only one angle shown on the screen of Faf upending Conor Murray. Yeah. If that was in the first test, we would have got the angle from behind, the angle from the right side where the shoulder made contact. We would have got every angle. But they only show the angle where it doesn't actually show where the contact is made. So it worked for him. It worked for the box. Will he take his punishment? Probably. Will he care? Probably not. The big thing is the water boy issue. A lot of people are calling it an issue. It's not an issue. World Rugby get granted that it can be 3 water boys. He's not the head coach. He's the director of rugby. Technically, he's doing nothing wrong. Is it brilliant on his behalf? Yes. Is it annoying to see that we didn't think of it first? Probably. But I think everything he does is genius, but at the same time reckless. He obviously doesn't care too much about the punishments if his facts are correct. So he's taken probably the moral high ground, as the fellow would say, if they punish him for it now, while he has so many clips that are what's wrong with the game. But the other side of it then is, out of probably 26 of the clips, if you were to ref 19 of them properly, we'd have a 600-minute game of rugby. So as opposed to a 210-minute, 80-minute game. But look at when it first came out, it was like, oh God, someone give that man a slap. But the more I watched it and the more I listened to it and the more I looked into it, I thought, he's absolutely a genius. And he has some patience to sit down and do something like that, to gather all the information and clip it and then put it into a 60-minute video. So, look, I think there'll be a hefty punishment for him, but I do think it'll open World Rugby's eyes to the problems in the game, and the problems with the different interpretations by referees. I don't think there should be different interpretations. I think laws are laws. So if you follow them, you follow them. Like, I can't go into a shop and rob an apple wearing a blue jumper, but if I walk in robbing a red jumper, I'm okay. It doesn't work like that. Like, so if someone headshots somebody in one game, but the other lad headshots him in another game, it's okay because it was from a different angle. It doesn't work. Yeah. So hopefully they stamp it out and they correct the problems with the laws and with the game at the moment, because last week's 210-minute disaster is what I call it. Wasn't entertaining to watch. So
that's brutal. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Lads, we're going to wrap it up. And as usual, before we finish, Chris, you got one right, one wrong. We're allowed.
I might that for one because I just got the wrong test.
Yeah, exactly.
Flexibility. How do you see the third test going? Start with you, Chris.
Oh, the eternal optimist in me suggests we're going to find a way to do this, but this is definitely my heart as opposed to my head saying a 21-10 win to the Lions.
Anyone sent off this week, Chris?
Yeah,
definitely. Closer.
We're getting closer. We'll go. One South African.
Okay.
Maybe Tom Curry.
Hopefully.
Well, yeah. Right, Tony, ball's in your court now. Give you the easy option.
I'm going to stick with it. I think the Boks are going to do it. I just think they're going to be too physical. I think there's too many lads going to come in off the bench in key areas of the game that are just not going to be tested, and I'm going to feel the heat. So I'm going to say Boks 15, Lions 9.
Okay.
And definitely Tom Curry is going to get a yellow card.
Okay, you heard it here, folks.
They have to be sick of him by now.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, well, fingers. So that's a
Boks.
You
have the casting vote now, Stephen. So
I'm a bit on the Chris side of it as well. I'm struggling with the head and the heart side of it, and the unpredictability of it, especially when it comes to the reffing, and the fact that there's a lot of calls going all over the shop. It's hard to predict who will be sent off and how many. No, I'd probably go with a South African win as well. I'm looking at. I said the Lions will be lucky to get a try and a penalty. So you're looking at something like 21-10. That range. Yeah, give or take. 20, yeah, no, I'm just trying to play it out in my head. It's a 21-10 or maybe the line or the Boks to win by a bit more.
We'll have to eat some humble pie next week, Stephen, if things go wrong.
Hopefully. Just it's hard to see the Lions winning this one. I'm not impressed with that bench. And just in key positions, like you guys been saying around the park, I just can't see. I can't see where we can get on top of them on normal play and when the bench is emptied either. I just can't see it. I can't see it now, but hopefully, as we say every week, we're proven wrong. We'll see how it goes. Lads, it's been great chatting to you, as always, on the knock-on. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
We'll have the last game.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we can analyse the last game.
We can review the amazing Lions comeback from the dead.
Absolutely. And talk about how we got our predictions spot on and who was sent off. Great talking to you. It's Johnny Tobin, of course, from Tullow Rugby, and Chris Pim, former Leinster captain. Lads, thanks for talking to us.
Pleasure, guys. Thank you very much. Talk to you later.